Are you DTFF?
Once again, here's Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football with your host, Jake Trowbridge and Dustin Lunt.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to DTFF. We are excited you're here if you're joining us live, and thank you for listening if you're tuning in after the fact. Great episode this evening. Since we are in the throes of the fishbowl season and drafting, let's throw another mock draft on top of it and do kind of a mid-off-season mock draft here. Something that maybe we can compare to, say, in about a month or so, once we get real closer to redraft season and kind of look and see how ADP has changed and how our thoughts have changed on a player. So this is kind of a good midway point here of the off season and take a pulse of which players we like and which ones we're fading at this point. So before we get into it though, Jake, not only my co-host on the podcast, but my co-host in life as well. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, that was the sweetest introduction I've ever gotten, and I'm going to try my best not to taint it. I'm going to try to keep that pure. I'm doing fantastic, man. We're, like you said, we're in the throes of Scott Fishbowl. We had the Podathon that we were lucky enough to join over this past weekend. So a lot of really fun activity happening out in the fantasy world right now, and we're inching closer and closer to legitimate football every single day. So there's a lot to be had about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm training camp start here in a couple weeks. I know we've got, I think Saturday is the deadline for franchise tags to be signed. So that'll be interesting. I know we've got some couple of big name players out there yet that still haven't signed their franchise tags. So I'm assuming that's going to get done. I can't imagine that these players are just not going to sign and hold out for the season, but yeah, we've seen it before, so we'll see what happens here. Keep an eye out on that. Jake, I supplied the beer this evening.
You sure did.
And this is from a local brewery here in Madison. It's called No Está Mal, which translates to "It's not bad."
That's wonderful. I had no idea what it meant. I'll be honest. I feel bad about myself for not knowing
it's not bad. And this is a Mexican style amber lager. So kind of like your Dos Equis Negro that you would find out in the wild. Very similar to that in style. What do you think about this beer, Jake?
I think it nails it in the name. It is not bad. It's kind of in the middle realm of a lot of different styles. The Venn diagram of like 4 beers overlap into this for me, but I enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah, it's real tasty. It's not heavy whatsoever. It doesn't have that Mexican lager kind of bite to it that most like Coronas or Modelos or whatever. They kind of have that there's a different yeast flavor to it that I'm not getting with this, but that doesn't stop me from drinking it. Is a very good beer. I like this a lot.
Yeah, this is a nice session beer, even though it's a little bit warmer out now. Like this is something I'd take down to the beach.
Yeah, 4.6%. It's a lawnmower beer. You could sit and drink this all day long.
Yeah, and I might someday, honestly. Not today. Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe. We'll okay.
We'll see. If I do, unfortunately, I might end up in our next segment yet again. So dare we venture into our drunk trade of the week, Dustin?
Let's hit it.
Drunk, hammered drunk.
Drunk trade of the week.
So our listeners with steel traps up top might recall that last week I mentioned I was going to be featured in this week's drunk trade of the week because I had myself a little Friday afternoon trade frenzy a couple of weeks back, and it led to a series of trades that I'm very interested in getting the public's perception on, yours included, Dustin.
So Jake, before we get going, is this all the same team?
This is all the same team. This is all from the same league. It's a 12-team dynasty, super flex, tight end premium league. It's one of my favorite leagues. And the first one that went down, I initiated this.
Can I cut you off for 1 second? Just ask
Sure.
one more clarifying question.
Yeah.
Do you consider your team a contending team, or are you kind of in a rebuild mode?
I don't know.
right.
I think it's become more apparent after this series of trades.
Okay.
I do not know where I stand, and I'm flailing to grasp onto something that gives me direction one way or the other.
Fair
And
enough.
so that combined with boredom, combined with ample alcohol, led to a 3-for trade here. Different teams involved besides my own. But the one that kicked it off was me, who had a lot of aging wide receivers on my team, say, you know what? I don't have much at tight end. I'm really desperate at the position. Let me go and grab a guy that I like, at least for this year, which was Tyler Higbee. So I sent this trade to the Tyler Higbee manager. I sent Brandon Cooks and Josh Wiley, who we just talked about on the AFC South preview episode. He's the rookie tight end for the Titans. I sent those two for Tyler Higbee. Dare you guess the kind of responses I got in the league chat on this first one, Dustin?
I'm going to say you got roasted pretty hard on this, thinking you could have gotten more for Brandon Cooks than just Tyler Higbee, even without throwing in Josh Wiley.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, the person I made this trade with, initiated it with, is Michelle Majuk, friend of the show. She said she would prefer Josh Wiley straight up over Tyler Higbee. So she said, you basically gave me Brandon Cooks for free. Oof. I think that's an exaggeration, obviously, but it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the person who I'm trading with thinks. And so, yes, I could have gotten a lot more. A lot of people jumped in to say, before I even admitted it, Jake's drinking. Let's go make trades with Jake, which led to trade number 2 coming my way, where I sent DeAndre Hopkins, still without a team technically, Deebo Samuel, and a 2025 third-round pick, basically a nothing pick, for DJ Moore, Rashad Bateman, my guy Tim Patrick, and a 2025 second-round pick. This is interesting, I would say, more than the first. What do you think, Dustin?
I like your side of this. Just at first blush, I really do. You're getting younger at the wide receiver position, and he picked up a 25 second, which is nice. Hopkins, yeah, he doesn't have a team yet. We know he's going to get signed somewhere. It's just a matter of time. But he's getting older. He's got maybe a couple years left at being like fantasy relevant, probably.
Maybe
Deebo,
3.
yeah, and Deebo, he hasn't lived up to the hype since his big breakout season a couple years ago. I think he has that name value recognition. And then, like you said, the third is just kind of a throwaway piece. And you're getting young wide receivers, which is nice. I like DJ Moore and his situation, which we've talked about already. Rashad Bateman, I know you're big on him. And, remains to be seen in this new look Ravens offense here, what he's going to do. So I think, he's got good upside there. Tim Patrick, obviously we love him. He's got great upside when he's on the field. So yeah, I like that move overall.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I felt the same way. I felt that this trade gave me a little bit better sense of direction. I thought, all right, let me get younger, get some of these guys. And we've had the Deebo Ayuk conversation so many times on this podcast. We know where we fall there. This led in directly to the last trade, which was sent to me, again, by a different team who really wanted DJ Moore. So they sent Devontae Smith and Romeo Doubs for DJ Moore in my 2025 second. So 2 of the pieces that I got from the previous trade, Moore and that second-round pick, went immediately back out the door for Smith and Romeo Doubs. What do you think about the finale here?
I like your side of this as well. I'm a big fan of Devonta Smith. I'm trying to get him wherever I can. I found that very difficult because people also really like him.
Sure.
In Romeo Doubs, as Packer homers, we like the flashes that we saw out of him. Yep. And if you're looking at it as a 1-for-1, it's DJ Moore for Devonta Smith. I guess it's who you like better. I prefer Devonta. And then a 25 second for Romeo Doubs. Yeah, give me that all day. The 25 second you can get back later. So you got lots of time to recoup that pick if you want to. So give me Dobbs with that, what we flashed and saw out of him last year. Might have some good flex appeal, this year, depending on what that Packers offense looks like.
Yeah, admittedly, I don't know if Dobbs himself is worth a second-round pick, even a 2025 second-round pick right now, but I do think that the upside is crazy. I love Smith, and I think I was way more excited to get him. I think he's the best piece out of any of these trades by far. So I was just really excited to have another linchpin wide receiver to pair with my Stephon Diggs, with my aging Keenan Allen, and some of these other guys that I have. So I really like what it resulted in. So let this be a lesson. Just because you make a bad drunk trade to start things off, you don't have to continue down that path. It can lead to greater things. And in fact, I would dare say, if the first trade I made wasn't as bad as it was, I don't think these other ones would have gotten into the mix. So I think ultimately it worked out.
So you don't think Romeo Dobbs is worth a 25 second?
I don't think most people value him as that right now. I really don't. In fact, I've seen his dynasty ADP be behind Jaden Reed's right now, which is probably just because of draft capital, real life draft capital investment.
Right.
I was happy to do it. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know that that's where his value is.
I know. I just feel like for a 25, with it being 2 years out, I mean, I don't mind that for him as a guy with potentially good upside to him.
Well, I would say go ahead and start sending those offers in your dynasty leagues, because I think you would easily get him for that. So yeah, just jump to it. You might not even have to give that much. You might get a third back with it or whatever. So
who knows?
Yeah, it was a fun Friday. I'll tell you that.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Jake, for giving us lots to talk about here with drunk trades. We so appreciate that.
Absolutely. And
I'll have to see what I can do as far as getting some drunk trades onto the show here.
I think you should start that as soon as possible. It's research. It's called research for the podcast.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. What do you say we do the real damn thing or the mock damn thing and jump into this?
Yeah, let's do it here. Let me get this up and running. Here we go. So, looks like we've got 9 teams, Jake.
You bet.
So that's pretty good. I will. Oh, you randomized it already?
I went ahead. I randomized this up real nice. So hope nobody got too comfortable in the draft spot that they were sitting in for our mock drafters. We've only got 3 vacancies here, so it'll move a little bit faster through those as they auto draft. But very curious. So you ended up at the 108 position and I at the 111. So you get a little bit more of what I have in the Scott Fish Bowl in that juicy middle. So you'll be able to see things coming from both sides, which is nice. Whereas I'm going to have to really be leading the charge probably on some positional runs. So we'll see here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do the official damn thing and start the mock draft.
Okay.
That sound means things are happening. Is there anybody right away at the 108 that you think, just based off of what ADP is, that you're hoping to land?
Well, I don't want to give it away for all these people. See, I was kind of hoping Kelsey would fall there and try a Kelsey team here for redraft. But
well, if you don't want to give away trade secrets just yet, let's do the quick rundown. This is a 1 quarterback redraft format. We are start 2 running backs, start 3 wide receivers, throw a flex into the mix as well. Pretty close to what I think most home leagues end up being. So with that, I will at least tell you, when it is start 2 running backs in full PPR, I feel like I have so many options towards the middle and late rounds of the draft. So I'm not, as a couple of people did, I'm not interested in bully RB or hero RB, whatever you call drafting a lot of RBs up at the top. I get it, but I think my plan, my strategy is not going to lock into any individual running back.
No.
So as you make your pick here you made your pick.
I made my pick. Yeah. What with JT
Fast.
coming off of a down year is between him and Saquon. Unlike you, Jake, when you have to start 2 running backs,
Mhm.
I like to at least get one running back early on and get one of those studs. If I can snag 2, I will. Only because I feel like with wide receiver, drafting those guys later, you get a little bit safer floor. Like you can have a floor where with running backs, having that floor is so questionable that having a guy that is going to essentially be a bell cow, he's worth drafting early.
See, that's interesting because I think from a volume perspective, this is a year where running backs, there's some dead zone, quote unquote, running backs that people like to talk about that I think are not in that mold, that have a ton of volume to work with. So as I'm on the clock here, I think I'll probably be sticking to my guns. I'm not going to go with a running back to start because I do think in the juicy mid rounds, there are some volume plays that I'd be interested in. I'm going to take Stephon Diggs. Love him here at the 111. I think he's basically a lock for top 5 receiving fantasy production, and I will welcome him onto the team.
Yeah. So, Jake, as we're finishing off the first round here, what do you think about Cooper Kupp going as the 3rd wide receiver off the board for Team 6 there? I know it was the auto drafted one, but still, do you have any concerns about Kupp, and would you take him that early in your draft if he was there?
I would, and I have. His
Nice.
ADP, I think, is act. It's an accurate reflection. So the auto draft, like, I get it. It makes sense. In Scott Fishbowl, he was the first receiver that I took coming back to me. He's still an upside play. Like, he is still in the running for wide receiver 1 overall easily. So Justin Jefferson, I get it. I don't argue with people taking him first. Same with Jamar Chase. But if we're talking Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, and Stephon Diggs, that is the next tier for me in terms of wide receivers. And if you want to move Cooper Kupp into the first tier, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I am 100% agree with you, Jake. I just wanted to get the temperature from you.
Yeah, now this is a spot. So as it comes back around here, in between myself and myself at the 111 and now at the 202, Patrick Mahomes, our first quarterback off the board, followed by CeeDee Lamb. So I'm still left at a spot where there's so many good wide receivers, so many second tier, adjacent third tier wide receivers that I feel good about this. I don't get to draft this guy hardly ever. So I'm going to smash AJ Brown, my drunk trade recipient's counterpart in real life, and get a nice little stack of Diggs and Brown.
Yeah, that is nice. 2 high-powered offenses, both studs. Good start there, Jake.
I thank you. I thank you for that. And as you plan for your next pick here, quick run of the first round and how that went for our listeners. Justin Jefferson, Travis Kelce, Jamar Chase, Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Cooper Kupp, Bijan Robinson, the rookie sensation, hopefully. Jonathan Taylor, drafted by yourself. Then Saquon, Tyreek. I took Diggs, and then Mahomes. So you are now on the board. It's been a little bit of a wide receiver run here. So it started with Lamb, and then my A.J. Brown, followed by Amon-Ra St. Brown, followed by Devontae Adams, who I almost took instead of A.J. Brown. But I've drafted a lot of Devontae elsewhere. So I will say, before you get your pick in, that Devontae Adams also has almost wide receiver 1 upside. Like, he could almost get to the wide receiver 1 upside because they lost Darren Waller, replaced with Jacoby Myers. We're just waiting on that quarterback situation to be decent, right?
Yep. Yeah, and I was really hoping Adams or Brown was going to fall to me there. One of those two I'd have been perfectly happy taking, but I got sniped. So I decided to take a hard right turn, and I went with tight end, taking Mark Andrews, who's essentially a wide receiver, and just shoring up that position early, so I don't have to try to piecemeal it together later.
That's fair. I don't mind that approach at all. I think Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce are probably closer in overall projections, or they should be closer maybe in overall projections than they currently are. Andrew Campy, one of our drafters in the chat, by the way, I'm annoyed I picked Bijan Robinson over Taylor. I panicked. It happens to the best of us, Andrew.
That's right.
You've got 60 seconds on the clock, and all of your emotions come up to the surface at that exact same time.
But I also don't feel like it was a terrible pick either. I mean, yeah, you may have panicked a little bit, but you still have a hell of a player there you picked who's probably going to put up great numbers this season.
Well, and honestly, Bijan Robinson has been going ahead of Jonathan Taylor in a ton of drafts that I've seen in basically all formats. So I don't think it's an outrageous pick, Andrew. I don't think you should feel bad about it. It just always stinks when you don't get the guy that you, in retrospect, would have rather had.
That's right.
All. So in our main chat, by the way, in Sleeper, friend of the show, Bo McBigtime, go follow him on Twitter, by the way, said wild pick in regards to Patrick Mahomes getting taken at the tail end. Do you think that that's an egregious pick? Would you expect to see a quarterback that early in most one quarterback drafts?
Typically, no, although I know we've talked about it a lot on our show here with our home league that we are in together. It wouldn't surprise me to see Patrick Mahomes go in the first round. But to each their own. I mean, if you can't go wrong taking Mahomes, let's be honest.
Right. The only question is, what do you have to sacrifice to get Mahomes on your team?
Right.
And this year, for me, the sacrifice is, could you have just gotten Jalen Hurts and or Josh Allen a wee bit later? Because I think that group, talking about tiers earlier with the wide receivers, I think that is the quarterback tier that I'm so comfortable with any one of those guys. I wouldn't want to be the first person to pull the trigger, but you are also talking to the person at the tail end of the draft and the 12 spot, and they have a long way to wait.
Long time. Yep.
So if they want him or somebody of his caliber, I get the vibe. I get having to make that move, as uncomfortable as it might be. Any other surprises that have happened in this draft besides that?
No real surprises. A little bit of a running back run there after my Andrews pick, which has me a little concerned. I was hoping some running backs would come back to me, but that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, otherwise, no real surprises so far.
Yeah, after your Andrews, it went Garrett Wilson, then Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, Ramondre Stevenson. That was the end of the run. And then we had a tight little grouping of wide receivers with Jalen Waddle, DK Metcalf, Chris Olave, and T. Higgins. You can't go wrong with literally anybody out of that group. I was actually a little surprised to see DK Metcalf ahead of the likes of Olave, Higgins, and even Devontae Smith, who went a couple of picks later. He typically falls a little bit lower, but again, this is a person drafting out of the one spot on the far end. If you want DK Metcalf, there's just no chance that he was going to make it back.
That's right.
Another 2 rounds. So that's what you got to do. What did you do, Dustin? This is interesting. You tell me about this pick.
I took Keenan Allen. I'm hoping. I'll just lay out my draft strategy here. I'm hoping a specific running back makes it around to the turn.
Okay.
Here in the 4th round. So I decided to go wide receiver since I haven't taken a wide receiver yet. And looking at the board, it was Debo, then Keenan Allen, Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Hopkins. It was kind of at this point where I was like, I think Keenan Allen I think he's going to have a rebound season this year. And I am fully on board with it.
I agree. I think we talked about this either last episode or the episode prior, that Keenan Allen finally, his ADP is reflective of where I think he should be, though, for once. Normally you could get him a couple of rounds at the discount, but now, like where you took him, and I still think he has a lot more upside, to your point.
I'm a little disappointed. I got sniped again by Dave there right after me taking Lamar Jackson. I was kind of hoping he'd make it around to the 4th or maybe even to the 5th round, pair him up with Andrews to have that stack, but that's the way the cookie crumbles.
I'm in a really weird spot right now, and I don't like it.
You're almost out of time here, Jake.
I know. I'm down to like 10 seconds and it doesn't feel good. So I'm going to do a purely volume play and Najee Harris. Najee is probably one of the most divisive running backs for drafting this year. So he's a guy who his rookie season did very well. He was a top 5 running back. Last season, he's fighting through injuries, bad offensive line, bad team play. Let's just be honest, bad Steelers team play overall. And still finishes as the RB12. So it's hard to fault the guy. I'm not as big of a fan of Jalen Warren, the running back who was drafted, where people think they're going to split work, down the middle almost, it seems like, for 60-40. I don't feel that way.
I don't see that happening either.
All right. Well, good. I felt like I was taking crazy pills for a while. The ADP is really interesting here. I really thought he was going to be falling down draft boards, but I think we've talked him up too much. Aaron Jones, I'm guessing, is the guy who you wanted to come back.
It was. That was who I was hoping was going to come back around to me, but so be it.
Now you need a plan B outside of Aaron Jones. I just love, again, it's a volume play. I don't know if Aaron Jones will be as efficient as he's been in the previous years without Aaron Rodgers there, with a very young cast of wide receivers and tight ends. Maybe he'll see more stack boxes and he won't be as efficient. I still don't think it matters because the volume is going to be crazy for that dude. Similar thought process with Najee Harris. I will draft wide receivers based on talent all day and only talent sometimes, but I won't do that with running backs. I need guaranteed volume. So in between, by the way, there was a little bit of a running back run, if you will. So right before my Najee pick, it was Travis Etienne, then Harris, then Kenneth Walker, and then Deebo Samuel finally went off the board, basically a running back. Am I right? And then Aaron Jones, and then Joe Burrow, Jahmyr Gibbs, and yourself taking a quarterback in round 4.
That's right. Yes. After I got sniped with Aaron Jones, and I would have taken Jahmyr Gibbs had he got back to me, or ETN for that matter. And then looking at the wide receivers, I wasn't overly happy with what was sitting there. With the running backs, there was Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, Damian Pierce. Like, they're fine, but I don't have to talk about Joe Mixon on this show since anyone that listens know our thoughts about him. I will not draft him.
Hey, and he got auto drafted, which is good because now we don't
good.
even have to attribute him to a real life person.
Yeah.
That was
so I figured, give me a quarterback that has that rushing upside. Plus, we're hoping takes a step forward in the passing department this year. And he was the last one of that tier of quarterbacks that I really liked.
Yeah.
That has that rushing upside to it. So I figured, take a shot. And that's what these mock drafts are for. Try out different strategies to see what works, see how your teams look, give you an idea of what that ADP looks like, and play with it a little bit. So that's what I'm doing.
Now, see, I thought mock drafts were to assert your dominance over everyone. I thought that's what we were supposed to be trying to do here. So I apologize.
That as well. I mean, if you can do that as well, yes, you should do that.
Okay. But I will say Justin Fields in the Scott Fish Bowl League, I actually took it to 106. It was probably a bit of a reach for a lot of people. But I also took him over Justin Herbert, as you did here. And a lot of that just had to do with the rushing upside, even though I love Justin Herbert. It might have been nice for you to stack him with Keenan Allen if you're interested in pairing your quarterbacks and wide receivers. But ultimately, you got to do what is best for the individual value.
Yeah, I mean, I probably could have done that and maybe grabbed Herbert in the 5th if he would have come around. I'm not sure if that would have happened or not.
He wouldn't have, because look who just got taken at the tail end of round 4.
Right.
Justin
But if
Herbert.
Fields was still there, would he have been taken? We don't know.
That's true.
But it's more of a thought exercise there. But yeah.
More philosophy based.
Yeah, we finally had a couple more tight ends taken off the board here. Middle of the 4th, we had TJ Hawkinson, and at the start of the 5th, Dallas Goedert.
Yep.
So kind of that last, in my opinion, that last tier of reliable tight ends.
Interesting. Now I have another guy.
You have
Actually, I
Pitts?
have
Is it Pitts?
two. No. I'm not going to tell you names at this point. Look, you wouldn't divulge any portion of your strategy until round 3, and then we had to pry it out of you. I'm
I
not going
know.
to give names, but there are 2 guys that I would lump into the tier that is after Kelsey and Andrews. So Hawkinson, Goddard, and then there are 2 other names that are still undrafted, which I'm very excited about. Please, mock drafters, do not take them from me.
I might take another one just to snipe you, Jake.
Do it. Do it at the detriment of your own fake roster. Your own fake roster, in fact. That's how deep we are into this. We're already playing fantasy football with fake rosters, but in mock drafts, they are fake rosters. So Dustin's on the clock. Now, yeah, Goddard went, which was interesting. And then there was Jerry Jeudy, Trevor Lawrence, another quarterback, Miles Sanders. DeAndre Hopkins goes auto-drafted in the early part of the 5th round, which is strange to me. His ADP is just not reflexive of the situation.
No, absolutely not.
Let me ask you this, because there's 2 teams that he's still really tied to. Let me throw both teams out, and you tell me if this is an accurate spot to draft him then. So Patriots, if he lands at the Patriots, is this an accurate spot?
I guess. I mean, he would, be their number 1 wide receiver right out of the gate. So, yeah, I guess that's fair.
That's true. And now I went up on the clock. So let me see. You sit and stew about who that second team is, by the way, as I figure out my pick.
Is it the
here.
Titans?
It is the Titans. If he goes to the Titans, is it the same?
So you make your pick. I'll talk Titans here.
Thank you.
So yeah, if he goes to the Titans, I really don't like that. I probably wouldn't draft him there in the 5th round if he goes there. One, they have Treylon Burks, who they just drafted and has a lot of upside, but then it's not a high volume offense. I think we talked about this on our show last week with the AFC South, is that they're just their offense does not have a lot of passing volume, and that really worries me. And I don't know that they could support 2 wide receivers. And I just think they would end up going to the younger one more than Hopkins. So I would be out on him at that price if he signs with the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think it is a 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, multiple tight end show in the Tennessee Titans room. And I could see the argument that Hopkins, depending on what his contract is, supposing he signs with the Titans, maybe he is the guy because they pay him X amount of dollars to be there. You have to wait for that kind of stuff to come in, obviously. And why pay for DeAndre Hopkins if you're not going to use him? Although, to a much lesser extent, we saw Robert Woods not do nearly as much as we hoped Robert Woods would do. I get stuff. It's not the same guy. It's not the same player. But that's it's a thought to keep in the back of your head. Now, you took Alexander Madison. Is that somebody? Is he a consolation prize, basically, because you missed out on your other tier of running backs?
Yeah, I mean, it was him or Damian Pierce. I think they're both going to have good volume, but we've seen what Madison has done in the absence of Dalvin Cook. Will he be as good as Dalvin Cook throughout the whole season? Probably not, because Dalvin Cook's an amazing running back. Is he 80%, 85%? I'll take that as my running back 2 on my team.
I think I might be higher on him than you are, because you question, is he 80? Is he 85%? And I basically said a little while ago, he is basically a 10% downgrade from Dalvin Cook. So wherever you were going to draft Dalvin Cook, presuming he was there, you just got to back him off a little bit. That's not a little bit. In the 5th round is not a little bit.
No.
I could make an argument, I think, for him to be a 3rd round guy. And I think it makes complete sense there. Now, I'm on the clock yet
back on the clock.
And I have a lot of interesting decisions to make. And I'm going to err. Oh, this is so gross. This is the grossest part of the draft. And I don't want to reach on the guy that I really want. This sucks. I'm going to take Hollywood Brown. It doesn't feel great. There's another guy that I'm praying makes it back to me. But to your point about Madison, I think could be a 3rd round guy, in which case you got an absolute steal, which I think you did. Is he above Aaron Jones for me? No. That's why I drafted Aaron Jones, but I think he deserves to be in that same conversation. Now, my previous pick, I took Darren Waller. Darren Waller, reverse spoiler, is the guy I was talking about before that I think deserves to be in the conversation.
Was Kittle the other one?
Kittle was the other one. That's correct.
Yeah, I figured that. But yeah, I like that. I think Waller is in line for a great rebound this season.
Yeah, so Kittle went a couple of spots before me. You could argue any way that you want that the quarterback conundrum in San Francisco makes Kittle a less savory target. But lest we forget, San Francisco has been doing the same thing at quarterback for the last 2 seasons. We never know what is happening at quarterback. And every time George Kittle comes out and is more than fine, he's a top 3 guy.
That's right.
So I think that's the appropriate order, by the way. I think Kittle above Waller. I absolutely agree with that. If Kittle was there still on the board, I probably would have waited to take Waller on the turn instead of locking him in there. Kyle Pitts went a couple of picks after Darren Waller as well at the turn. So Kyle Pitts, is he completely out of that tier for you then?
Of the elites?
Of the near elites, because it's
elites?
Not Kelsey and Andrews, but it's that next grouping.
He would be in that next group, but he would be probably the end of that group. I would expect the offense to take a step forward with Ritter at the helm. Another year with what's his name, Drake London. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's a fine spot for him. I think the fantasy community has, tempered their expectations, thinking he's going to be this world-beating tight end, the next Travis Kelce, which everyone thought. So I think expectations have been tempered now, and that's a pretty reasonable spot for him to go right now, all things considered.
Yeah, so after Pitts for you, there's a firm line. Now we move into the next tier of tight ends. So when a guy like Pat Freiermuth goes towards the end of the 6th round, as he did here, TRPS2 from the, what spot is that? 609 takes Pat Freiermuth. I wonder if some people are trying to move him close to that tier, or maybe in a tier of his own. It could be Pat Freiermuth showed so much as a rookie last year. And I do think that he doesn't get enough credit for that. But I think in ADP, we're starting to see that actually be reflected a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think you're hoping that offense takes a step forward.
Yeah.
As you were saying with Najee earlier, like the offense really didn't do much last year. So you're really hoping that there's that good positive regression in the touchdown column. Because Kenny Pickett had 5 touchdowns, passing touchdowns last year? Like, that's not good,
many.
Bob.
I think it was slightly more than that, but I don't think it was many more than
okay.
that.
7. I mean, it was in the single digits.
I think it was like 10, but basically single digits. For fantasy purposes, it might as well have been 0. For your point, because Deontay Johnson didn't get a single one, by the way, which is still outrageous. And Deontay Johnson, the guy that I was secretly hoping made it back to me, does go off the board at 701. So there goes that pipe dream. I knew it was unlikely, but I was still hoping. Here's what I want to pick your brain about.
Kenny Pickett had 7 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns last year.
10 total touchdowns.
10
That's
total.
my B. That's my bad, sir.
I'm back on the clock. What do I want to do?
Back on the clock. So over the last couple of rounds, there's been some interesting players coming off. So ones that stick out to me as you make your pick here. So after my Hollywood Brown, we had Michael Pittman go, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans back to back, which I think makes a lot of sense because we've talked on the show. We don't know who the Tampa Bay quarterback is. I think Baker will get the opportunity more often than not. And so from my perspective, there is a guy that I would rather have out of that duo, but people are playing this game because we don't fucking know. For real, we don't know. I think both of them could be a value going in the 6th round. Time will obviously tell. Brandon Ayuk goes 2.5 rounds. No, round and a half after Deebo Samuel. That I think is a steal when you compare him to Deebo Samuel. So what do you think about the Mike Evans, Godwin, Ayuk block there?
I was happy that I was hoping Chris Godwin would have came back to me, but taking Mike Evans in the 6th round. I mean, both of those in the 6th round just feels like stealing in my book. Mike Evans, all he does is put up 1,000 yards and 8 to 12 touchdowns every year. As my second wide receiver off the board in the 6th round, I will take that straight to the bank all day. Your point with Ayuk, I'd rather take that discount. I thought about taking Ayuk, but with that quarterback situation we were just touching on, and I know that the quarterback situation in Tampa isn't much better, but I've seen Mike Evans do it for a number of years, so that's who I trust more. So that's why I took him. But yeah, getting Ayuk in the 6th round, I think, is super good value as well.
Yeah, I love it. You're obviously a man after my own heart with Evans as well. The next one up after them, I also found very interesting. So Dalvin Cook, another guy who doesn't have a team yet, went at the 607 spot. He went ahead of James Conner, who I actually really enjoy. Kind of regretting not taking him back in my Hollywood Brown spot and swapping out Cardinals there. With Dalvin Cook, what spots would he go to that justifies that draft spot for you?
I think
If
anywhere I think anywhere he goes where there's not already a bell cow running back. So you're looking at your top 10 or so running backs,
Yeah.
you know, McCaffrey, Eckler, Robinson, yada, yada. I think any other team, I think he's going to walk in and demand all that attention. And I think getting him in the middle of the 6th round, I think that really could be a steal. And that could be one of those players that really helps you win your fantasy championship if you're able to get him this late in your redraft round come, August, when we're really doing this for real.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I'm still split on him just a little bit. If he goes to Tampa Bay and kind of replaces Leonard Fournette, then it's Rashad White, who went a full round after him in this mock draft. Cam Akers, I think, is interesting. If he somehow goes to the Rams, because the Rams decide that we actually do want to win this year. Matthew Stafford, he's fine. He's healthy. Cooper Kupp, we're going to get you involved, buddy. Let's add some help to the backfield for the departed Darrell Henderson. That gets interesting for me because I do like Cam Akers in general this year.
Yep, I agree. So, Jake, you are back on the clock here.
Oh, it still feels just as gross as I left it when I drafted David Montgomery. So, David Montgomery, I'm just going volume plays on running backs. And I think that people are undercutting how much work David Montgomery is going to get in Detroit. I'm going to make the decision actively to pivot to wide receiver. I don't normally do this, but we're only starting 2 running backs, and I feel good about that group. And this is the only time that I have taken Jackson, Smith, and Jigba in a redraft type of format. And, in the 8th round, I'm very comfortable with that. We're talking rounds after, DK Metcalf went at the tail end of the 2nd round. Tyler Lockett went at the beginning-ish of the 7th round. I'm okay, because I don't know what's going to happen between Lockett and Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, and that's fair. Kamara going right after you in the 8th round. Now, how do you feel about that one, Jake?
Well, so interesting development just this morning as we are recording on a Tuesday night. Alvin Kamara's situation is that he basically pled down, so it's not going to be a felony, which is huge for potentially what his suspension means. So instead of a felony, we're looking to downgrade that, which probably means Roger Goodell and company maybe downgrade what his suspension is going to be. I still think they could make an example because there's videotape. I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer, not even of bird law. But if I had to guess, it plays a little bit of a factor into it. But I still think 6 games is on the table. So if you can handle a 6-game suspension from him, it's a great value. But we're talking about the DeAndre Hopkins situation from last year still potentially.
Yep. Yeah, and that was my thought. And if he's, depending on your team build, yeah, if you can make it through there and draft him there, that's great. But you'd really have to be bully RB there to start, for my comfort, to be able to take him.
And as you're talking about that team, it's an auto draft team. They had 2 running backs drafted already, and Travis Etienne and James Cook. That's not the type of team that I feel as comfortable taking Alvin Kamara on. If I had taken him, let's say, in place of David Montgomery, I have Najee Harris, I have Aaron Jones, 2 guys who I feel very comfortable with their volume. Yeah, maybe I could see that. I still personally wouldn't want to do it. I'll wait for the actual allotment of games to come through before I make my decisions.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. I'm not going to jump through. In the chat, Andrew asking between Smith and Jigba versus Jordan Addison for redraft. What are our thoughts? Supposing that Addison should get more targets in the Minnesota Vikings offense. Now, I made my decision, Dustin, so I want to hear from you on this one. Who do you prefer for redraft?
I think for this season, it's Addison, and I almost took him instead of Jahan Dotson there in the 7th round. It was a toss-up between those two, but ultimately, I don't know. I just got a feeling about Dotson for this year. It's weird. I don't know what it is. I haven't seen any news about him, but I just have a feeling he's going to take a step forward. But yeah, I think to get back to the question, Addison is going to be the guy for this year. For Dynasty, I think they're both going to be great players, but I think that Njigba has the path to more targets only because Lockett is starting to get a little long in the tooth and could be off the team after this year, where then I think Njigba will really shine moving forward.
Yeah, I think for this year, it really depends on what do you think of TJ Hawkinson? Do you view TJ Hawkinson as a special enough tight end that he commands targets? Or did he command targets because the only other option in Minnesota last year was Justin Jefferson because Adam Thielen fell off? And I lean more towards the respect of TJ Hawkinson's side. And that might be why my preference for redraft this year, at least, is with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Also, just because I never got to draft JSN. Let's just be honest. I wanted to know what it felt like to click that button next to his name.
And was it everything you hoped for?
It was amazing.
Good.
We don't.
As long as you're satisfied,
I feel like I need a cigarette. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Some interesting names. I don't know, Dustin. We didn't talk about your last pick. How do you feel? So AJ Dillon going 4 rounds basically after Aaron Jones. That still has to feel good for you, right?
It does, and I'll admit now that I saw Samaje Perine go at the beginning of the 9th round. I might have taken him there, but taking Dillon, my thought is he's going to have a role in this offense. We know this. He's going to have a fairly solid role that we can depend on week to week, more or less. And if some reason, God forbid, I'm not putting this out in the world, if Aaron Jones gets injured, he will be a bell cow back in that offense. We've seen him be able to catch the ball, so it's not like he's just a runner. He does have pretty good soft hands. So that's why I took Dillon. It's kind of just grabbing that handcuff that I know can get a lot of work should there be an injury.
And I still think that he has the opportunity to get plenty of work, even alongside Aaron Jones. In terms of pure carries, I could still see that. I still think Aaron Jones commands way more targets.
Yeah,
I think that he's going to get funneled so much. But AJ Dillon, certainly not a bad grab there and a great value. And if I miss on Aaron Jones in my draft, is it because I'm a homer and I want to take AJ Dillon because I feel some sense of entitlement to my favorite team? Maybe, but I'm going to do it anyways because it does. When we're comparing him to somebody like Zach Charbonnet, who went 4 picks later, I mean, as much as I want to use this drop,
bring me a Charbonnet. Bring me.
And I just did. I still don't want him over AJ Dillon. Antonio Gibson, that's an interesting case by itself. Him and Brian Robinson. I don't really know who the guy is there. Iran, you mentioned wanting to have perhaps more than him. Is that just because you just think Javonte Williams is going to be kind of a dud to start?
Yeah, I think Samaje is going to have the bulk of the workload for the first quarter or so of the season. That's just my opinion. I'm not a doctor. I haven't seen Jamal Williams' knee or anything, but so I do think Samaje is going to have that role, and then he's still going to be involved in this offense when Williams comes back, because they're going to probably want to work him in a little bit slowly and not give him the full workload right out of the gate. So, I mean, getting that volume this late in the draft, I think, is just great value.
It is. It is great value. You would find that at a Walmart, for example. Now, I myself, I got nervous because of the auto drafters. Can I tell you? This is why I saw 2 auto drafted teams take their second quarterback in this round, and then it got to me.
Which very well could happen in your home league in a redraft. Like, we see it all the time in ours.
Yeah, now ours is because we have a drop and add limit. Per year, we can only do 13, whatever it is, add drops per year. But some other leagues might still do this because people like to play either the matchups or cover themselves for bye weeks or whatever.
Yep.
I don't think it's our preferred method necessarily, but it is what some people do. So I locked up Geno Smith because if Geno was gone, I was terrified. Let's be honest. Of what I was facing, he to me seems like the easiest guy to project for another top 8 season. And I don't think it's outlandish, but it just doesn't feel like anybody's drafting him to do that.
Well, he's being drafted like the QB in some leagues I've seen, like QB 17, QB 18, which is just ridiculous after the season he had last year.
Disrespectful is what it is. He adds really the guy who I stacked. Look at me stacking him with JSN, right? They add another weapon for him. Again, the running game should be bolstered, helping him out even more. Look at me. We're going back to the drunk trade segment, Dustin. I'm going to add this special young guy in Rashad Bateman, who what I'm expecting is first 3 weeks, I don't have to start him, right? I've got enough other options. I don't have to plug him into my lineup right away. I've got Stephon Diggs. I've got A.J. Brown. I've got Hollywood Brown and JSN maybe. But I have enough options. I can sit and wait a couple of weeks to see what Rashad Bateman's usage is, along with his cohorts of Odell Beckham and Zay Flowers. Now, OBJ went a pick before me. Lothi, I don't know how you pronounce that username, but they took him one spot before me. I would much rather have Rashad Bateman than OBJ, even in redraft formats. Do you have a strong gauge of that? I'll wait until after you're drafted as you're on the clock. Because guess what, fella? I have a strong gauge.
I don't like this pick at all. I don't know who to pick. I was really hoping JMO. Dave, you keep sniping me now. Knock it off.
Dave. I love the anarchy that Dave's breeding. Normally he breeds it in our chat. This time he's breeding it in the live action.
I don't like, there's no one that I really like. If I could trade out of this pick, I probably would.
You don't get the option. Dave, congratulations on making him sweat.
It's a gross pick.
That is gross. That must have felt so bad to choose Adam Thielen at this spot.
Well, it was ADP wise, it was Lazard or Jacoby Myers over him. And I just didn't want either one of those. Here's why I took Thielen.
Okay.
He should be a PPR machine. Are we going to see vintage Adam Thielen? No. But as my 5th wide receiver, someone that I know I can plug in on bye weeks and is probably going to get me 6 catches for 80 yards or 6 catches for 70 yards, I'm okay with that for like a bye week or a flex play. I'll take that kind of safe floor, like I said, as my 5th wide receiver.
Yeah, it's fair. I do think that it's going to be, one of those things.
But I mean,
and if he scores, then great. You're going to be really happy.
Exactly.
I actually would prefer not Allen Robinson.
Lazard.
Cut that. Don't ever pretend that never happened. Allen Lazard would be my preference over the two. I don't know. You wonder about Aaron Rodgers and going over there and just being a dick about Garrett Wilson. And my friend came along with me, so I'm going to target my friend. There's always that type of concern. And I think that maybe multiples could thrive there, but it's tough to say.
So what was the question you were asking me when I was on the clock there, Jake?
Oh, sorry.
I totally missed it.
Between Rashad Bateman and Odell Beckham Jr. this year, teammates, who are you looking at for redraft?
Oh, give me Bateman. I'll take the youth. Beckham's coming off a second ACL injury.
That sounds right. Feels right, at least.
And I would like to think that if teams really thought highly of him yet, he would have been picked up in free agency a hell of a lot sooner. And I know the Ravens gave him a decent contract, but I still I don't know. Give me Bateman at this point of their careers.
I appreciate that vote of confidence in the dude that I selected. Now, as we're winding this down, we've got a couple of rounds to kind of fill out our rosters, but I want to go through the rosters that we currently have and see if there's anybody that jumps out to you. I personally have one in mind that I think kind of crushed it. And I'm kind of disappointed that it's not my own team. But do you have anybody that also stands out to you, or do you want me to recap?
Go ahead, recap, because I'm on the clock here. So,
oh, look at you, just skirting the issue. I'm actually really excited about Bo McBrayer's team. McBrier. I apologize for not knowing your pronunciation of your last name, Bo. But Bo McBig Time at the 2 spot came out swinging with Travis Kelce, which I have to respect by default based on how egregiously dumb I was regarding him last year. And then he comes back with Jalen Waddle, who I think is going to be incredibly safe. T. Higgins, who I freaking love. I like that he got the 1 Bs off of both of those teams, or at least you could perceive it that way. And then J.K. Dobbins, again, great volume back, I think will be wonderful. Jerry Jeudy, I think, has a great bounce back in him on the Broncos. Tua as a late-ish quarterback in round 6, I think is wonderful. Cam Akers, as long as nobody signs with the Rams, is going to get so much work. So as your RB2, that's wonderful. Then we got Zay Flowers. I disagree there, but that's fine. Elijah Moore, I think, could do a lot of great things with Watson in Cleveland. And then we got Devon A-Chain. That's fine. But now we're just, towards the tail end of the draft. And Chingo Conquo is a tight end too, just in case Travis Kelce doesn't pan out. Always got to have a game plan set for him, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
I took Alan Lazard just because he was still there. And I felt like I'm going to live up to what I said. But anybody here that stands out to you, good or bad? I think they can handle the negative if there's a negative team that you want to talk about.
Oh, that guy drafting out of the 11th spot, his team is fucking garbage.
What a garbage person, and what an absolute asshole.
No, I don't think there's any one team here that I'm really looking at that I'm just like, ooh, what the hell were they thinking? I would like to say I really like my team. I'm not sure how I feel about it here. I know as we're winding down here, coming into the last round, got a number of people taking their second quarterback. I don't know if that's just because we're finishing the draft here or if that's how they would normally draft, but how do you feel about second quarterbacks going so early, Jake?
I don't do second quarterbacks in 1 QB leagues typically. It's just not for me, because I think in most cases you can find waiver wire ads throughout the season that get what you need out of that second spot. I would much rather take a additional running back, additional wide receiver, somebody who you're curious about, maybe isn't definitive, but in the first few weeks, I know what I got and I can either drop them and pick somebody else up, or I have this steal that I get to hang on to. I'd much rather do that instead of taking a second quarterback. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'd rather take a shot at an upside guy that could hit. Quarterbacks, I mean, even the worst quarterbacks in the league are going to give you a decent floor that you can at least plug in on a bye week. If it comes down to injury, you're kind of screwed anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, typically I don't like to draft a second quarterback in a redraft league either, just because I'd rather take the upside on some of these other players. Unless I'm really punting the quarterback position and not taking one until the double digit rounds, where then you're into like that quarterback 15 to 18 range. And it's like, okay, now I need to double up just to kind of hedge my bets a little bit.
Right. If you're in the 11th round, as some people are in, to say, okay, Anthony Richardson went off the board, Jared Goff, you want to pair those two guys together? Okay, that's fine. If you want to do that in the last 2 rounds of your draft or something, all right, I get it. It still wouldn't be my preferred preference. I would still rather take somebody with some semblance of what I perceive to be a great floor, but I respect it no less. I will say my least favorite team in this, if I have to be deathly honest,
is it mine?
It's not yours. You can rest easy. It is the auto draft team that went way too running back heavy for my preference from Team 5. I think Team 5, so they led off with Eckler, Derrick Henry in the 2nd round. That's fine. Josh Allen in the 3rd round. Great. Okay. Wonderful. Now we get to Calvin Ridley. We've discussed our concerns about Ridley. That's your wide receiver 1. That makes me nervous. DeAndre Hopkins is your wide receiver 2. Still don't know where he is.
No team. Yeah.
No team yet. James Conner, still love. DeAndre Swift. Now we're getting into interesting territory.
In the 7th round, though, that's fine.
Well, you already have 3 volume running backs. I'm questioning the need for that. Followed by Juju Smith-Schuster as your wide receiver 3. You have so many holes at wide receiver doing that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's an auto draft team, so again, we're kind of picking easy fruit here. But that's the type of thing that it's just not for me.
Yeah, I agree. And then, they took 2 tight ends super late. They took Kirk Cousins as a second quarterback late. So yeah, AI, get your shit together, because it's not how you're supposed to draft a team.
If anybody's worried about ChatGPT taking over certain elements of things, don't worry. We still have drafts that they can't quite figure out, at least for now. So that's nice.
That's right.
But you feel good about your team, do you?
I don't hate how it turned out, considering I went with a totally different draft strategy than I normally do, taking Andrews in the 2nd, taking Fields in the 4th. I don't hate how my team ended up. I will say things probably about the 7th round, I really started to I hated the players that were available when I was up to pick for the most part. It's those middle rounds are going to be tricky for me this year. I have a lot of late round guys that I'm definitely targeting. And I think had we continued on a few more rounds, I would have liked those late round flyers I would have picked up. But it's kind of those mid round with how this worked out. I just wasn't the biggest fan of those. I love how my draft started. Just those middle round guys I'm just not thrilled about. But overall, my team's okay.
You and Dave were trying to have a wide receiver off towards the middle rounds, and you just kept going back and forth. It was like a tennis match, just back and forth of who's going to cave. You caved, by the way, in the middle of your wide receiver streak. You cracked and you took AJ Dillon, whereas Dave went straight through with 5 wide receivers: Godwin, Pickens, Addison, Davis, and Jameson Williams, who you were very bummed about. You kept talking about him, snatching your guys away from you. So
I know, Dave, don't ever be in a draft right next to me again, please.
Dave, we're going to set up a mock draft for like 2 weeks out, and I'm going to purposely randomize you to be right next to him. So stay tuned.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody that joined us in our draft here. Really appreciate it. Makes it a lot more fun when you get the randomness of real people and the players they like to go after, as opposed to auto drafting that the AI does here. But yeah, big thanks to everyone. We'll do one more mock draft for sure before redraft season really kicks into full effect here, probably about a month or so. We'll get one more in, totally redraft focused, to get you ready. And like I said, we'll probably do a little comparison with ADP from this mock draft to that one. So stay tuned for that. We're getting into the fun stuff of the summer here for us with our drinking buddies, our sleeper busts, our players to avoid, all those good things. We've got a lot of fun episodes coming up here. We've got the Expo 1 month away from today. I know it's exciting. So hopefully we see a lot of you out there at the Expo. It'll be a lot of fun. Good luck to everybody who is in Scott Fishbowl this year. May your drafts be plentiful and may you get all the players you want. Unless you're in my division, Piggly Wiggly, then I hope I get all the players I want.
And you all get nothing.
That's right. But yeah, any parting words here, Jake, before we head out?
You covered it, but I will say anybody in the mock draft, if you want full analysis of your team, feel free to hit us up on Twitter at Drinking Fantasy. We would be happy to go through your selections in more detail.
Yep.
You deserve
Absolutely.
it. We owe you that for participating in this thing. And same for anybody, by the way, if you're out there drafting in Scott Fishbowl, in your own home league, in a dynasty startup, if you want our draft analysis, go ahead and hit us up at Drinking Fantasy, or myself at Jake Trowbridge, or Dustin at FF Dusty Dog. We'd all be happy to give you our true feedback.
That's right. And as always, folks, subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already done so. Give us a rate and review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, all that good stuff. And until next week, folks, keep drinking and talking fantasy football.
Cheers, FFers.